Today we'll look at how to use the graphing calculator on the Algebra 1 SOL. So on page 4, number 5, we're evaluating an expression. We're going to use the store key to verify our work. So let's store the values. We're going to store 1, store, which is the bottom left, so type 1, store, and then the letter. So 1 stores A, -5 store as B, and -4 store as C. So now we stored our values. Let's type in the expression. So alpha F1 So there we verified that 13 was the value. All right, also on page 4, we're solving equations. One way to check that, besides plugging the value in, is you can graph it as 2 lines, and the x value of the intersection should be your solution. So you go into y equals, and you type in the left-hand side of the equation, which is 18, into y1. Go down to y2 and type the right side. Now in this instance we will be using x because we're not evaluating. So here we have the left side of the equation, the right side of the equation. So let's calculate the intersection. So second, trace or calc. Number 5, intersection. So I don't see intersecting lines in my viewing area, so I need to zoom out. So I hit zoom. Number 3, enter. And now I have a point of intersection I can calculate. It says second, calc. Number 5, first curve, enter. Second curve, enter. Guess, enter. And -5. So I'm looking that the x value and my solution are the same. All right, so now we're going to use the trace key on page 7. We have a function to evaluate. We want to know f of -6, so we're just going to go into y equals and type the function. So 2/3 x plus 1, so I want to know when x is 6, what is y? So one way I can do that is hit trace, and -6, y is -3. Another way I could have looked at my table. We use the same thing if we're given a question where we're finding the range given the domain. We're going to graph the function and then look for the y values that correspond with the x values. So we need to graph the function, which is -x² plus 4x. And if we want to trace, we can type in the values of -2, 0, and 1. -2, y is -12, 0 is 0, and 1 is 3. And I could have also gone to the table and looked for those values. Sometimes we've got to find the 0, page 8. They want us to find the 0, so we put in 0 for y and solved. Now we could also check that by looking at the graph of that function. So y equals 2x plus 2. And if I graph that, I'm going to change my zoom to a standard graph. So zoom number 6. And I think x is the intersection. Let's look at that. So trace. So I think -1 is the intersection. So that is my 0, my x-intercept, -1. And let's try one, same principle if we're using a parabola. So the quadratic. So go ahead and put the quadratic in. We should get maybe 2 solutions. Right, so -3 and 2 when I factored it, so of course trace -2 is not 1, -3 and 2.